Nimbula. Vinaka makalevina sema mai ena kavi vinaka ni singani kua singa lotu levu tikongo mai viti bakatanga kina mai Australia mai rope bikitongo chamani o sem tikongo chamani se matakalele tiko sanga uchikongo na tini ena 5 minito babini vinaka bakalevu ni sema rau mai nananta bulangi ena sini vinaka ongo bungo bikimnio ni sa klekoya bungo bikimnio ni sandor na kavaka ndo kava o koe me na nanda bono me viti vule o te telanga o koe me nanti na kombau school au marotaka ni ndona isema tiku wikirau ke Letitia Shelton o marotaka ni ngole mo koe na nongo visureti me kero me vitala noa ena ulutanga enda sa vitala tiku mikina ena vida na madhao saoti ena ulutanga ni veva katoto ngani ena loma ni vale sena viva kararata kimbeka ena lomni bali vi kena na marama vir talanga na turang aya dara kau nanuma me dara vitan lo kina skin kota marotaka ni se maramo ko na kai vina ni ko ia ni tek buna na ronda vitala no tiko ngondo na ser me na rongo da mata so to kickstart our Talanoa session today, to those of you who are listening in who may not be familiar with the Vosamakaviti, we have a song to play, which most of you know that I often play a song in the beginning to give people time to join me online. So we have a wonderful guest joining me from Brisbane, and most of you would have seen her and known her too. And her name is Letitia Shelton. She'll have the time to introduce herself, but we have this wonderful song that I want us to listen to. A wonderful song, one of my favorites by the late Jesse Modunambito, fascinating Fiji, but the video is set on the province of Namosi in Fiji. Hope you will enjoy it. Naka. Vinaka, Vinaka Vakalevu, na numuni maro takamai, na seri tatokoya, fascinating Fiji. Letitia is one of my favorite songs. I've really enjoyed that song. I think ever since the song came out when I was growing up in Fiji, I actually danced to that song as well because I love dancing. And I remember I choreographed a beautiful dance and make it's a Polynesian version because I studied in Hawaii many moons ago when I was a young woman, a young girl studying overseas. So that song always brings back beautiful memories. How do you feel listening to that song, Letitia?
Well, the song's beautiful, but so's the footage. I was
Yes.
mesmerized.
Absolutely.
Just beautiful and green, isn't it? Mm.
Yes, so that's where my husband is from, Letitia.
Yeah.
So my
Yeah.
husband is from Namosi in the beautiful province there. And in 2019, for a very interesting encounter, we met this couple, school teachers from Finland, Finland or Norway, somewhere from the northern Scandinavian region of Europe. And they told us that they had a drone
Wow.
machine.
Mm.
And so, due to the hospitality that that many of us Fijians are good at, the invitation was extended to them, and we ended up taking them to Namosi, and then the beautiful footage was created. Yeah,
Wow.
so that's how everything started.
Lovely. Beautiful.
Yes, so thank you so much to our listeners. My camera will come on at some point. It's for some reason today it must be cold in Germany, Letitia. So
Yes.
my camera is freezing at some point, but the audio is going through, and the audience are still watching, which is great. So we'll continue as normal.
Yep.
So Letitia, perhaps if you would be able to introduce yourself to our audience, just to share a little bit about your family connections in Australia and how you were connected to us in Fiji.
Yes. Thank you, Dr. T, for having me. I was born here in Australia in a city called Toowoomba, where I grew up. But at the age of 15, our family moved to Nassori, Fiji, where for 1 year I attended Undi Thackenbauer School and made lots of great friends. At the time of my life, I loved being the only white girl there with 500 Fijian girls at the time. It was a great cultural experience. I learnt so much and yeah, just created great friendships. I moved back to Australia where I graduated high school here. But then when I was 19, I moved back to Fiji again. Lived in Nandi where I did Youth with a Mission for 6 months and ended up on the island of Rotuma for some time doing some work over there as well. But came back to Australia and started as a pastor in my church and then started an NGO, a non-for-profit, working with women and girls in our city, vulnerable women and girls who've been abused,
Mhm.
with refugees, with foster children, sex workers, just a whole range, and have been pioneering that work for the last 25 years. And it was in 2019, one of my classmates from ACS messaged me and said, do you want to come back to Fiji and just do some sessions with us? So I did, and I guess my eyes were really open to a lot of the issues that Fiji is now faced with, which same issues that we have in Australia. But I think being a smaller country,
Yeah,
uh, it's really
so
compounded in
true.
a greater way. So I just feel like at this season of my life, God is calling me to just add my voice and what I can to the nation of Fiji. I've just come back from Vanuatu. I'll be in Papua New Guinea next year. So I think it's just a season of coming alongside the Pacific nations.
Yes, wow. I've been watching, what you were doing back home, and every time I see you or watch you or listen to you, always bring a smile to my face, knowing that, there's a woman from another country, we've adopted you through, the connection to Anditha Kumbau and your connection with Youth with a Mission. And, I just want to say on behalf of everyone who are listening in today, just to say Vinaka, Vakalevu for, choosing Fiji, and being a voice for many of our voiceless, particularly our Maramaniviti, our women, our, children as well, or even our Bubale, our families. So Vinaka Vakalevu, for doing that. It's a huge sacrifice, Letitia.
It's a sacrifice, a pleasure. I don't think I
Mm.
chose Fiji. Fiji's chosen me, and it's in my heart, and I'm not going away anytime soon.
So Vinaka Vakalev. Now, the other question I always, think about and wanted to always ask you, what motivated you to go into this work of advocacy and the current work that you do now?
Yes, well, as I said, I've been working in my own city for the last 25 years with abused women and girls, and so it's really come out, especially teenage girls. It's just they always say you can tell the health of the city by how well the women and children are looked after, and you realise that our girls aren't doing so well. And I've been given a good voice, and I'm not afraid to use it and speak up. So I'm happy to lend my voice. I guess when I see injustice and oppression, it's really important that we do use our voice. We are the hands and feet of God, but we're also His voice. And when the people are voiceless, we are to speak on their behalf, but also to help give them a voice. And that's what I've loved being able to do through my books, The Disruptive Voices of Fijian Women and Pacific Men, give them a voice. So I think whenever I see injustice, I just naturally want to speak up. Something goes off in my heart.
Yes, Vinaka Vakalev for doing that. Now, speaking, of your books, what motivated you to, start writing these stories?
Yes, it was before COVID 2019 when I was came to Fiji and just started talking to so many women and hearing their stories and thinking we need to speak up more. I mean, there have been
Mm.
groups for a long time in this space, and I acknowledge the amazing work of so many great groups in Fiji. But I guess I just wanted to use my skills. I am an author and had been writing books already, and then COVID hit and I couldn't get to Fiji. So I thought, well, let's find some women who are willing to share their stories, and I can use my skills and resources to put their stories into print. And it was an amazing response from the women. They were easy to find women who were willing
Mhm.
to share. Even though we have changed many of their names and situations because
Mhm.
of culture of silence and but that was easy. The men's book was a lot harder because men don't speak about these issues. So that actually took me 2 years to try and get the men's stories. And then finally, it all kind of at the beginning of this year fell into place. And that's been powerful because, again, where do men share their stories? Where do they go to? And so being able to give them a voice has been really significant as well.
And I'm glad you brought up that topic, Letitia, especially for our men. That's what we've been talking about before, that a lot of times when the word domestic violence is used, there's always that thinking that it's always violence against women. And sometimes, there's not much discussion to talk about what about the support for our men? What are your thoughts about that?
Yeah. Doing this book gave me a lot more empathy for them. The report into violence against children in Fiji just came out a few months ago. I happened to be in Fiji for that, which revealed 4 out of 5 children are abused. So in that number are a lot of young boys, whether it's verbal, physical, sexual. And so what my book brought out is that boys quite often have been molested at a young age by whether it was the school janitor or uncles that were coming over to their house. And because, again, where do little boys go to? And so our bodies aren't physically made to carry trauma like that, something that
Mm.
happens like that from a young age. And when you just cover it up and sweep it under the carpet or you don't know where to go, it will continue to grow. And it's like a cancer. Cancer undealt with grows and eventually, comes out. And so I've realized a big problem why our men end up being abusive is because they've had high level trauma in their lives at some point, along with the culture of pornography. And so, when you've got those issues, you will generally manifest in anger or violence. And so we've got to find places for our men to get healing. It doesn't excuse what they've done, but we've really, got to find places where our men can talk and make it acceptable for men to be vulnerable and share honestly and get help, because I think so many of them are struggling.
Sentino Saranga Letitia. Um, I'm sure you've heard the situation that happened with Kelera Sivo, the lady that,
Mm.
unfortunately lost her life,
Mm.
in 90. And that's how my Talanoa series started on this topic
Yes.
of domestic violence. What did you hear and how did you hear about Kelera?
I think I just heard it on Facebook as well. Was the first time I heard about it, and then a few on our Facebook chats began some conversations. And thank you for really picking up this topic as well. I think the more of us who are speaking about it, I mean, I don't know how many more women need to be not just murdered, but raped, beaten, before we actually take this seriously. It's a crying shame, really. And so I hope that we don't, I mean, awareness is important, but we actually really need action as well. And it will mean having to change some of the cultural issues, which I know are really hard, but and probably it's not good for an outsider to speak about these things, but I mean, this is the reality. Some of the culture that we have going on in the Pacific Islands is adding to this. And until we're really willing to confront it, we're going to bury more women.
Absolutely. I'm glad you brought out the topic of culture, because that's something I've been talking about with my guests, that I've spoken to earlier, even, with Bex, Ceci, our sister from New Zealand. And, she's married to Fijians. And so one of the point I was, raising as well with my other guests was, in the Fijian culture, Letitia, leading up to a girl's hand being asked for, they have a whale's tooth, right? That is given. So it's a symbol of respect and love. So that's even before the girl's hand has been asked for. And then also when the girl is getting ready to get married, and then after the wedding, there's also a cultural ceremony that is called the Itataunaki. So I'll repeat it again for our Fijian guest, Itataunaki. So Itataunaki means that the girl's family is going to ask the husband's family to look after their daughter. And it's a really, really moving ceremony. And so most of the time, Letitia, I often see that people forget that part of the Itataunaki, because in the Tataunaki ceremony, it has so much deep words that are, if people can just remember and recall that moment, that can be one of the actions, for our Fijian men, just to go back to that time, that those words, and just to remember, even if that's one action, maybe, if our Fijian men are listening tonight, just to think of those words that are said during the Itataunaki ceremony. So I can see that some of our cultural things can be changed, definitely, to adapt to the new time we have today. And there are some ceremonies that are really great that we need to remember. What are your thoughts about that?
Yeah, and I did a podcast interview with Akanisi Turumbi, I think her name is. She's a Methodist Rundini, and she does a lot of work for House of Sarah. And her comment was, any part
Yes.
of the culture, that does not bring joy must go. Because there are amazing parts of Fijian culture that I love, that I've learnt from, that I learnt at Undi Thakambau School. But then there's other parts, just like in my Australian culture, that must go. But then on top of that, I mean, you're such a church-going nation, and this is what does excite me, is that 64% of Fiji go to church, or at some point, and this is where I don't quite understand, because the Bible teaches so beautifully. And as a pastor, I've studied these passages over and over. Ephesians 5, we love to say that the woman must submit to the man. But hang on, let's just go down a few verses. And it says, it's a call to the man to love his wife as Christ has loved the church. And that, being the head of the home is a Greek word, kaphael, which means you're the source of life for your family. And I've grown up with an amazing dad and 3 brothers and in a great church community because the men actually displayed sacrificial love to their wives, to their families, to me. I've never been abused because the men around me actually lived the Bible. So if the men of Fiji, this could change a nation. If every man loved his wife as Christ loves the church, and they keep turning up to church week after week, if we took a hold of this, it would change their life, but also a nation, along with that beautiful ceremony that you're talking about in your culture. This is the crux of it. But unfortunately, because of there's so much pain and hurt. And I talk a lot. I actually just preached in Vanuatu 2 weekends ago, where the issues are the same over there. And I said, God wants to heal the islands. He wants to bring healing. And in order to heal, we've actually got to allow room for voice, to hear the voice of the suffering, then to weep, and then to repent. So they're kind of some spiritual tools, that require more than awareness, because I think by now we're all aware of the issue. So let's just bring the issue out. Like if I have a sore, I've got to get rid of the pus. Let's allow the issue. Let's give voice to the suffering. Yes, it's not nice. It uncovers issues in our family and our culture. But then let's weep, because the biblical way is to really weep over the sins, and that releases healing. And then repent to one another rather than fighting, and the men and the women. Isn't it beautiful, God's ways? So it's all in the Bible.
Absolutely. And you mentioned, Fiji is a Christian country, and most people quote, from those passages you beautifully, shared, but now it's a matter of action, yeah, to do it. One thing is knowing those passages, and the one thing is saying it off by heart, but the other thing is to actually do something about it. So in terms of your work in Fiji, just looking at the domestic violence, you've been going to Fiji back and forth, and you'll be going back again very shortly. What have you observed over these years in terms of just the numbers that you've come across?
Everyone has a story. That's what shocks me. For instance, when I was in Fiji last month, I walked into a cafe. I saw my friend from Lifeline. I said, "What are you doing in the cafe?" He said, "Oh, I'm here because one of the staff members committed suicide." So he was there to bring counselling. Then a lady runs over to me to say thank you for my books because she has been abused. And then I sat down with the person I was having coffee with, who shared about her grandfather abusing her. So within half an hour, I'm confronted. And again, we have these problems in Australia, but it just seems like everyone I encounter, maybe it's because of the work I do, people just freely tell me. But it's destroying a nation, really. But, when there's great oppression, there's great hope as well. And I am finding a lot of hope in that. But yeah, I think if we can help our men find places where they can share their problems, if we can help them understand what it means to be a biblical manhood has got nothing to do with power and control and being on top, if we can help the equality of human beings, but then also the pornography issue. I'm not sure if everyone in Fiji realizes, but your kids are watching pornography. I think we've heard that Fiji rates in the top 10 for the world for Googling pornography. And again, I hear a lot of stories, and I get to speak in a lot of schools, in the boys' schools, and I love speaking to the boys about this issue because I help raise awareness that pornography, it actually destroys your brain cells. It destroys your ability to look at women like human beings. They become objects because of what pornography does. It turns our boys into predators. It turns our men. So every month when the Department of Public Prosecutions releases their rape statistics, that comes out every month, and we're reading about 83-year-old grandfathers raping their 4-year-old granddaughters. I mean, this is again and again and again. I know that's pornography, because only pornography can make a grandfather and rewire his brain and make him that sick that he's gonna do that. I mean, what decent man would rape his granddaughter? You know, stepdads raping their stepdaughters. You've got 14-year-old boys raping babies. I think that was in February this year. So there's not enough talk about pornography. And I'm thankful, very thankful for the Minister for Women, Linda Tambuya, and we're actually working on a plan of how to regulate pornography, especially for children, but we've got to stop our grandfathers from watching it too. So, you know, the problems are big, but also because the nation is small and connected, I think that means that there's a great opportunity to bring hope and change in that space.
Absolutely. I mean, thank you so much for working with the Honorable Minister. And I've also been looking at examples of the world in which they can be able to control, what is provided on the internet. I think it's China, and is there another country in the Pacific that has control of with fee?
I know France. So France and quite a number of the states in the USA now have made it that that you need a government number to log into a porn site, and you've got to be over 18 to get that number. So there's different ways in which countries are making it more difficult for children to have easy access, because right now kids have access to phones, and when they get a phone, all the settings so that they can easily see pornography. So there's different ways that countries are beginning to trial this, and so I think it's hopefully something that we can bring to the Pacific Islands, and there seems to be some goodwill in Parliament around that at the moment.
Wow, that's really good to hear. And you're absolutely right, because the access to phones, right, are much, accessible these days. I just came, I was in Fiji in October, which is, of course, last month. And I was surprised, Letitia, that, speaking to one of my daughters-in-law, who was saying to me that they trying to help their 4-year-old son from being somehow, in the category of addicted to telephone. Just this is just, watching the little cartoons, and she mentioned to me that when it's 2 o'clock in the morning, 3 o'clock in the morning, their little son is still watching the cartoons, and couldn't go to sleep. So would technology be also be another way, like the companies in Fiji that we could work with?
Look, definitely. I mean, I just say to parents, don't give your child a phone. I mean, seriously. Their brains, it's just so bad for their brain. And I know we like to give it to them just to occupy them, but it's just not helpful at all. One of our ACS old girls works in cyber trafficking in Fiji, and she did a presentation at a program I ran just last month. And Fiji has more mobile phones than people. So Fiji actually has you have a very high rate of people who run social media per head of population of any other country. More mobile phones, your data is very cheap. And so we were talking with some teenage girls, and she actually got the teenage girls just to do a little activity where they would acknowledge, have they ever been solicited by someone online that they don't know? And most of them, said yes. There's predators everywhere. And so when we think of sex trafficking, we think that it's the movement of human bodies, and changing of money, but so much trafficking happens on space. So if a girl, sends a man her nude photo, he'll sell that, and that's cyber trafficking. And so we don't realize how prolific this is. How prolific. And I think the Attorney General a few months ago said there's something like 8,000 pictures of Fijian children out there online, and a lot of it's making money. So there are predators everywhere. And because we say in Fiji, well, we don't talk about these things, they're sensitive issues and taboo topics. Yeah. That's another part of the culture we have got to blow up, because if you're going to give your child a phone and not talk to them, it is child abuse, really. It's a form of child abuse, because the predators out there, And what pornography is predatory. It's a $150 billion industry. It's high level money financed by people who are hunting down for your kids to get porn in front of them. And so we have just got to either not give them a phone or do some really good parenting. But we're
Absolutely.
just not. We're silent. And look, we've got the same issues in Australia too, but Australia is really waking up, and a lot of schools are doing high level education around it. But parents have got to, because it's destroying our young.
Mm.
I think it's a big reason. Fiji, one girl a day becomes pregnant in Fiji. So much of this is driven by the porn industry. Because every girl, and this is when I speak in schools in Fiji, I speak to the girls. Every girl is asking one question, and it's the question, am I loved? Every girl wants to know that she's loved. And if she hasn't received love from her family or from her father particularly, she goes searching. And guess who she finds? Johnny. And we all know what Johnny wants. He doesn't know how to love or honor or respect a woman. He wants sex. And so it's a messed up world. So we're working hard on teaching our girls their value and worth. I've been doing that for 20 years here in Australia, and have been running some of these programs with a great group of leaders that I'm training in Fiji. But just helping girls to really be smart, understand what the boys are wanting. I'll just say this. So I brought in, on one of our programs, we brought in a great young boy. He's 17, goes to a local school in Suva, and he talked about the 3 Fs. Because I asked him, well, I said, what are the boys at your school talking about? And he said, the 3 Fs. Oh, what are the 3 Fs? I've never heard of them. He said, well, all the boys, they want to fix a girl. So that means they want to get with her. Then they want to F her. So sorry, I'm not going to swear, but they want to F her, and then they want to forget her. So can you imagine? This is the talk among boys in schools. And so, vulnerable young girls that haven't received love or security from a home, they're falling right into this trap. And again, because of these taboo issues, and our families and our churches aren't doing sex education at all.
No.
We're missing in action, and to not educate our children on these issues again is just a ticking time bomb. So look, there's so many layers and levels
Yes.
that I could talk about,
No,
but
Letitia, I just want to say thank you, for being bold, to say these things. And I know there's a lot of our mothers and fathers watching my Talanoa right now. Mbula Vinaka to the wall, Mbula Vinaka Kulani they're from the UK. Mbula Vinaka to my Rotuman sister, the Honorable Marietta Ringamoto, who was the Minister for Agriculture in the the 2 previous governments. But it's just wonderful, to see our women here, and also some of our men. But some of the issues you've talked about, it's good to talk about it in public, because they come under that taboo, category, or the sensitive topic category. But we are here in 2023 that we need to address it. Yeah. Being vigilant and talk about all these taboo topics openly in the home. What do you think about that? Do you think it's happening now in some families?
definitely, especially among the younger generations.
Okay.
So, parents who are maybe in their 30s, I think there is, it's happening, but not enough at all. I think not enough, but it's beginning to change. But there's so many good resources out there on the internet on how to have these conversations around sex and pornography with our children. So all the resources. I'll just mention a great website called Defend Young Minds. Defend Young Minds. It comes out of Canada. I know the lady, and they just do a really good job. The other really important issue, which has been highlighted as I've been in the schools, is helping our girls know that they can speak up. And again, it's part of the culture where maybe women or girls don't speak up, especially if men are present. But helping them understand that their voice is there to protect them, And so their voice, I mean, is really important, but their voice is there to protect them, and their voice is there to protect other people. And so the more our girls know that they can have a voice, that will help them if they're in wrong relationships. They just won't put up with it. They will speak up. They will protect themselves and others. So yeah, there's just so many things, areas in which we can really
Wow.
work on
Mm.
to bring change. It's time for change. We've had the awareness.
Mm.
Now it's time to actually, bring some change.
Mm. Hindi na sarang Vinaka, Vinaka Bakalevo, Letitia for, just being here with us today, and talking with me and discussing some of these topics that needs to be talked about and addressed. And I know you've mentioned, we've done a lot of awareness. Now is the action part. So I just wanted to say Vinaka Bakalevo to you for, championing many of these issues and working with our Randinis in Fiji. I know Akanisi Tarambe, the House of Sarah. She's a wonderful woman, a friend of mine as well, whom I've called on for advice, called on for some of my own classes that I teach in my language and culture sessions. So
Yeah,
now, just by talking with you now, you've given me some ideas on how, even though I teach the language and I teach the culture, maybe I need to incorporate some of these topics you're talking about in the Wasavakaviti language. Do you think these can be some of the actions that I can do as a teacher?
that would be so good. So good, because I can't do that. Yeah. And there's just some really practical, simple things and of what we can talk to our children about, which I'd be very happy to help you in if then you could
Mm.
teach the language, because so important.
Di na
But
sarangay, because that's one way we could reach many of our families is through the use of um because I know some of the materials that are available are in the English language, but I know Fijians are really well versed in the English language. We forget that there are levels of would to speak in the Vasavakaviti and be comfortable with it. So I think if whatever language, whether it's Hindustani or Ottoman or the Itoke language, the more we use these languages for the benefit of, reducing domestic violence and the roots of it, the better. Yeah.
yep, we can do it. We can bring change.
Yes, Letitia.
Yeah.
So to bring our Talanoa session to a conclusion, I know this is part one of the many parts that I'm hoping to arrange with you. And I just love the work you do. I'll give you back the time if there's any word of encouragement. There may be a mother or a father or someone, a young child, or listening to our Talanoa right now and needs some encouragement in anything that move you at this moment. I'll give it back to you, Letitia.
Yeah, I do just, like I said before, want to encourage us. It is time to heal, and healing comes as we acknowledge the pain. I just had a big cancer cut out of my face, and I had to acknowledge that there was something wrong there, and I had to go and get it out. And so, if I just covered it up, my face would eventually disintegrate. So, if you're carrying something in your life, please, I'm encouraged by the amount of women and men who are beginning to speak up and break that shame, break that silence, so that the healing can come, so that we can have these discussions among our families and bring it into the open. And then what it teaches the next generation is that there is no taboo topics, that we are free to speak about these issues, and freedom then begins to flow down from generation to generation. So, um, find a trusted friend, find someone that you can just begin to talk to, share to, reach out to Dr. T or myself or some of the other people that you've seen on our platforms that have been sharing their stories. I'm really encouraged that new boldness is coming, but it starts by just being real and honest, doesn't it? So Vinaka, so much for having me.
Sa Vinaka, 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 mundo, mundo, mundo. Letitia, for taking the time away from your busy schedule. I know you are planning to travel tomorrow. I'm also traveling too. I'm in Germany at the moment and going over to Spain and moving back to the United States. So I'm just so glad that between our busy schedules, we're able to have this Talanoa. And I've got so many positive comments coming through on this Talanoa. Just many enjoying what we both do, and I think we should each be, listen and watch what we do. And this is great. I think, as you said, the more the merrier.
Yes.
And the more we do this, the more talanoa we share, the more many and be bold and brave as well. Yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Yes, Vinaka, and all the best in your prep for your trip tomorrow. And I will see you again in Fiji.
That'll be great.
Vinaka,
Wonderful.
mother,
Love
Letitia.
it.
Naka. Yes. Wow, what a beautiful Talanoa session. We've just Shelton joining us from the beautiful Brisbane in Australia. So blessed that she can be able to Talanoa platform. I've wanted her for so long to come on my show, and our prayers answered, including my prayer as well. So she's been a wonderful blessing to many of our communities in the Pacific. She's just been to Vanuatu, and she's coming back to Fiji. She's very familiar, a face to many of us in Fiji. She shared her story being at the cafe and people, walking up to her to share the story. Please, I would like you to do that. And I'm very happy that Letitia has given her time and energy to also listen. And I think that's my takeaway today. Some of the actions that we need to do. If someone comes to you with her story, maybe it's time for us to listen to what they say so that the healing process can happen, but also at the same time that we act on some of the biblical principles of love that needs to start from home. And so, again, I leave you with those beautiful words, very positive and uplifting. It's a beautiful morning here in Germany. I know it's very cold outside, but this conversation has warmed my heart. And when I'll be traveling in the train in a very short time, I will be so empowered to do more and find ways in which we can impact our communities. Vinaka to everybody for joining in today. And for those of you who will be watching the live recording, Bula Vinaka, and we love you all. Vinaka, Wadimanda.